Hello, Tim Whalen here from Whalen Jazz Lessons. Greetings from freezing Wisconsin, where it is -8 degrees as we speak outside. That's all right though. We're going to heat it up today. See what I did there? With 2-5-1s. By the end of this video, if you follow 4 steps, you'll be able to play 2-5-1s with thirds and sevenths in any key. Let's dig in. If you haven't done so yet, check out my Jazz Warm-Ups and Etudes package. It's a set of 4 etudes based on tune-up, the blues, rhythm changes, and autumn leaves. They'll expand your vocabulary, they'll help you master transposition, they'll deepen your rhythmic precision, and I think they'll help unlock some creativity for you. So if you haven't done so, it's totally free. Just click the link in the description. All right, let's get into these 2-5-1s. So the end goal with this video is we're just going to get to thirds and sevenths, but we're going to get there in a certain specific set of steps. But the goal at the end is to be able to play 2-5-1s with good voice leading, with a bass note in the left hand, thirds and sevenths in the right hand. If you can get this together, it will make adding notes and thickening the textures much easier. And we'll do that in another video. But for now, I just want the end goal to be, can you play 2-5-1s in every key with thirds and sevenths with good voice leading? As we go through this, you're going to see a theme, and you've seen this theme in many of the videos I've made so far. Knowing some basic foundational things is so important to play this music. So, if you don't have the circle of fifths memorized, memorize it. Meaning, memorize the root movement of the circle of fifths. Memorize your key signatures, major keys and relative minors. Okay, also, know your diatonic seventh chords, the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord. We're only going to focus on the 1 chord, the 2 chord, and the 5 chord today, but it's part of 7 chords that make up a diatonic key. So make sure you know those things. It will make everything so much easier, and it's really just memorization. When we're talking about a 2-5-1, we're talking about the diatonic chords in a key signature. Okay, the key signature dictates these chords. The 2 is a minor 7 chord because the key signature dictates that. The 5 is dominant because the key signature dictates that. And the 1 is major because the key signature dictates that. So, if we're in the key of C, okay, if we play these diatonic 7th chords, we're going to get a different key, different chord for each tone of the scale. So, the 1 is a major 7, our 2 is a minor 7, 3, 4, 5 is dominant, okay, and then back to 1. So, if we look at this and just play the 2-5-1, we get a 2 minor 7, 5 dominant 7, 1 major 7. Let's play that again. 2 minor 7, 5 dominant 7, 1 major 7. When we talk about the 5 dominant, we're just going to call it 5-7. That keeps it simple, and that's what it is. 5-7. We don't have to say 5 dominant. Now, how does this relate to the circle of fifths? Well, if we look at the circle of fifths, if it goes clockwise, it moves by fifths. If we go counterclockwise, the root movement is fourths, okay? So, let's find the D on that circle of fifths, or fourths, some people call it. So, if we're in the key of C, D minor 7 is the 2 chord. Now, the next note in the cycle or the circle is the G, which is a 4th away. And then the C is a 4th away from the G. So when we have D minor 7, G7, C, you can see it says D, G, C through the circle. When you're looking at a lead sheet or a piece of music, you can start to find 2-5-1s by looking at the root movement. If you see a minor 7 chord that goes up a 4th, that could be a 2-5. Let's talk about step 1. We're just going to deal with bass notes. For in the key of C, we're going to talk about the 2-5-1 only with your left hand bass notes. And the reason I'm doing this, I want you to get your left hand used to seeing the 5 chord going both ways from the 2 chord. And from there, resolving to the 1, depending on where you are from the 5. Okay, it's less complicated than it sounds. What I want you to do, for in the key of C, here's our 2 minor 7, D minor 7. All I want you to work on is, you're going to play the 2 chord, go up a 4th to the 5 chord, and then down to the 1. D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Let's go to the key of F. 2 chord key of F is G minor 7. G minor 7 up a 4th to C7, down to F major 7. Last one, let's do key of G. A minor 7 is the 2 chord, up a 4th to D7, G major 7. The other way is now instead of going up to the G7, I want you to go down, well, up to the 5 chord, down to the 5 chord. So in the key of C, I was talking about G7, D minor 7, down a 5th to G7, then up a 4th to C major 7. Here's the other way. Just get used to that root movement. Work that through all the keys. It seems like simple, and maybe you feel like I don't need to do that, but I think it's worth at least making sure that you can do that in every key. So there's step 1. Step 2, let's get into the 2-5-1. What I want you to do is play 4-note 7th chords in the right hand and bass notes in the left hand. And I want you to move the chords in parallel motion in root position, just meaning you're going to play root position 7th chords on each chord of the progression. So, in the key of G, A minor 7, D7, G major 7. Key of F, there's our 1 chord. So the 2 chord, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. Take this around all the keys. I'm going to give you some progressions later, but let's just do some random ones for now. Let's do the key of D. E minor 7, A7, D major 7. One more, key of A flat. B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. Doing this with these chords in root position like this, it just makes sure that you have those basic 7th chords down. It might be easy to gloss over this. I would recommend don't do that. Just take the time and do this second step. Now step 3, we're going to take some notes away and only deal with the 3rd and the 7th. If you need a primer on 3rds and 7ths, check out my 3rds and 7ths video, which I did a few weeks ago. It can kind of get you on the right path to make sure that you have that foundation. But with 3rds and 7ths, we're going to have a root, and then we're going to have a 3rd and 7th. There's also another way to play it, which is root, 7th, 3rd. Remember, there's 2 inversions. 3rd and 7th, 7th, 3rd. So we're going to do the same thing as step 2, but now just with 3rds and 7ths. So that would sound like this in the key of C, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Let's do the key of E flat. F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. How about key of A? B minor 7, E7, A major 7. So that's with the root, 3rd, 7th structure. Now let's try it. Root, 7th, 3rd parallel. D minor 7, G7, C major 7. How about key of G? A minor 7, D7, I can't talk today, G major 7. One more, I'll try to redeem myself. Key of D, E minor 7, A7, D major 7. So again, we're going parallel. We're taking the same structure and moving it parallel. This is another way to make sure that you know your thirds and sevenths. Now I want to do a quick little tip about the seventh. Let's go to the key of C. The II chord is D minor 7. Always remember this about the seventh. The seventh of the II chord, it's the key that we're in. Okay? So D minor 7 is the II chord of the key of C. The seventh of the D minor 7 chord is C, the key that we're in. There's our root. Although we play a seventh, I just want you to hear the root there. The seventh of the II chord is the key that we're in. All right. Now let's get to step 4. 2 5-1s with thirds and sevenths with good voice leading. This is where you're trying to get to. Okay. Now we're going to have 2 different ways of playing this because we have the 2 inversions. So essentially, what you're going to see is you're going to be flipping between each inversion when you go through the progression. All right, so I'm going to take you through this nice and slow, and so you can see how the notes move. Okay, so key of C, our II chord, D minor 7, third, seventh, and remember the seventh is the key that we're in. So here's how the movement works. D minor 7 has the third and the seventh. So when we go to G7, here's what happens. The third of the II chord stays the same, and it becomes the seventh of the 5 chord. Listen to that. Stayed the same. The third of the II chord stays the same and becomes the seventh of the 5 chord. Here's what the seventh does. The seventh of the II chord moves down a half step and becomes the third of the 5 chord, and then the third stays the same to become the seventh of the 1 chord. So the theme here is the third stays the same and becomes the next note of the next chord. It doesn't move. The third does not move. The seventh always moves. Say that with me. The third does not move. The seventh always moves. Okay? Check it out. So let's do the whole movement for each one. The third of the II chord stays the same and becomes the 5, the seventh of the 5 chord, and then it moves down a half step to become the third of the 1 chord. The seventh, remember the seventh always moves down a half step. It moves down a half step and becomes the third of the 5 chord, and then it stays the same to become the seventh of the 1 chord. There it is. That's the 2-5-1. Another thing to know, it's always good knowing as many different hints that you can find. Root 3-7, when it goes to the 5, becomes root 7/3. When it goes to the 1, goes back to becoming root 3-7. So the 2 and the 1 are both 3-7. 1-3-7, 1-3-7. The 5 switches. 1-3-7, 1-7-3, back to 1-3-7. But just keep in mind, there's this half-step movement. Seventh will always go down a half step. The third will stay the same when moving to the next chord. Okay? Let's just hear that in a few other keys. Here's F. And maybe one more, G. Okay, now let's do the other way. We had this back in the key of C, sorry. D minor 7. To get the other inversion, we're just going to bring the third up an octave. Now we have root 7th 3. It's the same rules, we're just flipping the notes. They're just inverted. The third stays the same and becomes the 7th, and then moves down a half step because the 7th always moves down a half step to become the 3rd. And remember, the 7th of the II chord is always the key that we're in. No matter how many notes are in this voicing, the 7th is always the key that we're in. Moves down a half step to become the 3rd of the 5, stays the same because the 3rd always stays the same, becomes the 7th of the I chord. So here's that inversion. Okay? Let's talk about really quick, back to the other inversion. Root 3 7, the interval between these is a 5th if you go from bottom to top or top to bottom. Tritone, the interval between 3rd and 7th is a 5th. The other inversion, it's a 4th, which is a 5th inverted. Tritone, tritones always look the same regardless of inversion. Back down to the 4th inversion between 7th and 3. Key of F. One more, key of G. Okay, so that's how we do 3rds and 7ths. One more time, key of C. Root 3 7, root 7 3, root 3 7. Root 7 3, root 3 7, root 7 3. These are also called shell voicings. You can do them in only your left hand. I'm going to do a separate video on shell voicings, but for now I just want to focus on the way we're doing it now. Okay, so how can you practice these? I'm going to have a separate little bonus PDF down there that gives you some practice progressions. And we're going to do 3 different practice progressions. The first one is practicing 2-5-1s down by key by whole step. And you see a lot of tunes that do this. So if we're in C, we'll start with the key of C, then we make our way down to the key of B flat, down to the key of A flat, down to the key of G flat, down to the key of E, down to the key of D, back to C. That covers 6 keys, so then what you need to do is you go, I think I go up a half step, maybe down a half step. I got to look at the thing. I think we'll go down a half step. Then we cover the other 6 keys, which would be B, A, G, F, E flat, D flat. Okay? So I'm just going to take the root 7th 3rd version, and we're going to go down by key by whole step. So check this out. Key of C, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Now, the C major 7 is going to become the II chord of B flat. So we're going to move the 3rd and 7th down a half step. That now becomes C minor 7. B flat major 7. Now we're going to the key of A flat. The II chord of A flat is B flat minor 7. Bring those 3rds and 7ths down a half step to become the 3 and 7 of B flat minor 7. E flat 7, A flat major. A flat now becomes the II chord of G flat major. A flat minor 7, D flat 7, G flat major. G flat major now becomes the 2 of E major, which is F sharp minor 7. So F sharp minor 7, B7, E major 7. II chord of D, E minor 7, A7, D major 7. If we do this in time, we'll go back up. I also started up here so we don't get too muddy. Remember, we don't want to voice chords too far below the C here. This is kind of our limit. Okay, let's do this in time. We're going to go down to the key of B because we have to cover the other 6 keys. This is good too because B is totally unrelated to C, and it makes you have to really think about the key signature. So the II chord of B is C sharp minor 7. C sharp minor 7 goes to the 5, which is F sharp 7, B major. Get a lot of our sharp keys here too. Key of A, B minor 7, E7, A major 7. Now the key of G, the A becomes A minor 7, D7, G major 7. G becomes the 2 of F major, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. Key of E flat, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. Key of D flat, E flat minor 7, A flat 7, D flat, and then we're back to C. In time. Oops. Okay. There's the other way. I'm only going to do, I'll just do a few of them just so you can see it, but let's go back to the key of C. I don't want the video to be super long. So now we have 3rd, 7th. It's the same idea, but just for flipping the notes. D minor 7, G7, C major. Same thing, C becomes C minor 7, F7, B flat major. Same thing, B flat becomes B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major. We'll do one more. A flat now becomes A flat minor 7, D flat 7, G flat major. Okay, we're back in C. We're going to go to B now. C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, B major. B minor 7, E7, A major. A becomes A minor 7, D7, G major, and etc. Okay? So that's the first way. Now I'm going to just do one kind of version now. We're going to go down by keys by half step. So this is kind of cool too. So we're going to go down by half step, but this will cover all 12 keys in one go. C down to B, B flat, A flat, G, G flat, etc. All the way back down to C. The other thing too, don't always start on C. I'm just doing it for the video. I'm going to probably start doing different keys just because I think we tend to do that too much. Like, let's just always start on C. So maybe I'll switch that up in oncoming videos. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down by keys by half step, and check this out. Back home. So that's how that works. The third way is I like to also do 2-5-1s by key through the circle of fifths or circle of fourths. Us jazz musicians sometimes we think about fourths instead of fifths just because root movement is that way. It can be either way. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the circle of fifths counterclockwise. So we're going to start with the key of C, and then we'll do the key of F, key of B flat, key of A flat, E flat, key of A flat, etc. I'll go through maybe the first half of the circle, okay? So here's the key of C. D minor 7, G7, C major. Key of F. Key of B flat. Key of E flat. Key of A flat. Key of D flat. Key of G flat. I can't really talk today. It's interesting. It kind of helps when you can talk. But you get the idea. Okay, those are 3 progressions. And again, check out the PDF below because it'd be helpful to have that as a reference point. So there you have it. 2 5-1s in a major key, thirds and sevenths, voice leading, practice progressions. I think you're set. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And I really appreciate you checking out the video. And if you'd like to subscribe, that would be appreciated too. So have a great day, stay warm, and happy practicing.